Before there was a Germany, before its name echoed through the halls of power, there was only land, vast, untamed, and ancient. A place where icy rivers carved through dense forests, where unknown hands painted on cave walls by flickering torchlight, where tribes and empires rose and fell like whispers in the wind. This is not just the story of a nation. This is the tale of a people shaped by war and wisdom, by ambition and betrayal, by fire and steel. From the mists of prehistory to the thunder of marching armies, from forgotten kings to legendary conquerors, we embark on a journey through time, to witness the birth of Germany. Chapter 1: The Awakening of the Land. The land that would one day be called Germany was born in fire and ice. Millions of years before the first human footprints marked its soil, vast glaciers carved deep valleys into the earth, their relentless advance and retreat shaping the rivers and forests that would one day become the heart of Europe. As the last ice age loosened its grip, the great meltwaters swelled the rivers, the Rhine, the Elbe, the Danube, turning them into lifelines of the wild and untamed land. Towering pines and ancient oaks rose where once only ice and stone had ruled, and in the shadows of these primeval woods, the first hunters arrived. They were wanderers, their faces turned toward the rising sun, seeking game and shelter in the endless expanse of untamed Europe. Clad in furs, wielding flint-tipped spears, they followed the herds of mammoths and reindeer that roamed the frozen plains. The land whispered its secrets to them, the crackling of ice beneath their feet, the rustling of unseen predators in the undergrowth. In the caves of the Swabian Jura they left their mark. Deep within the earth, where flickering torchlight met rough stone, they carved figures of animals and painted visions of the hunt. Here, among the shadows, the first stories of this land were told, not in words but in ochre and charcoal, the dreams of an ancient people etched into eternity. As the centuries passed, the glaciers retreated, and the land grew fertile. The hunters gave way to settlers and the wild was tamed. Villages of timber and thatch began to dot the landscape. The people of the land learned to shape the earth, planting grains beneath the sky, building walls to keep the wolves at bay. Rivers became roads and the deep forests, once feared, became homes. By the dawn of the Neolithic Age, the people of Germany had begun to wield a new kind of power, one that came not from the hunt but from the seed. They mastered the rhythms of the seasons, bending nature to their will. Fields of wheat and barley stretched where once only grass had swayed, and great standing stones rose from the earth, their purpose shrouded in mystery. Was it worship? A mark of the heavens? A sign of unity? None can say for sure, but they stood as silent witnesses to the birth of civilization. The first great cultures emerged. The Ban-Ceramic people, so named for the intricate patterns they carved into their pottery, spread their settlements across the valleys of the Rhine and Danube. They were farmers and warriors, builders and dreamers. Their legacy would live on in the land itself, in the names of rivers and hills, in the echoes of their traditions passed down through the ages. But even as these early peoples thrived, the winds of change were stirring. To the west, across the great waters, new civilizations were rising, the Egyptians, the Sumerians. And soon, across the forests and plains of what would one day be Germany, new peoples would arrive, bringing with them new gods, new customs, and the seeds of conflict that would shape the land for centuries to come. The awakening was over. Germania had begun its long journey into history. Chapter 2: The Clash of Empires. 1. The Rise of the Germanic Tribes. As the mists of prehistory lifted, a new people emerged from the dense forests and icy rivers of Central Europe, the Germanic tribes. Their warriors were fierce, their culture bound by honor and tradition, their gods as wild as the lands they ruled. Clad in fur and armed with iron swords and spears, they were masters of survival, crafting settlements in the shadow of the great woods, hunting and warring in equal measure. To the south, a storm was gathering. The legions of Rome, disciplined and relentless, had set their sights on these untamed lands. The Germanic tribes, though fierce in battle, were scattered, their unity fragile. But when faced with the might of Rome, their resolve hardened like the steel of their swords. 2. The Roman conquests and the blood of Teutoburg. The year was 9 AD. The Roman Empire, under Emperor Augustus, sought to push its borders beyond the Rhine, determined to tame Germania. Governor Publius Quinctilius Varus, leading 3 legions deep into the unknown, believed the conquest of Germania was inevitable. He was wrong. In the dense, rain-drenched Teutoburg forest, the Germanic chieftain Arminius, a former Roman auxiliary who knew their tactics well, laid an ambush. The trees became the battlefield, the undergrowth a graveyard. As the Romans marched, the silence was shattered by war cries, arrows raining from unseen warriors. A massacre followed. The legions were annihilated, their banners trampled in the mud, their commander taking his own life. Rome's dream of Germania was crushed in a single, devastating blow. The empire would never again dare to extend beyond the Rhine. 3. The Great Migration and the Fall of Rome. For centuries, the borderlands remained a fragile balance of trade, war, and uneasy alliances. But as Rome's strength waned, the Germanic tribes grew bolder. The Huns, a terrifying force from the east, descended upon Europe, pushing the tribes before them like leaves in a storm. The Visigoths, Vandals, Ostrogoths, and Franks, each in turn, swept across Rome's weakening borders, carving out new kingdoms from the dying empire. In 476 AD the final blow fell. The Germanic warrior Odoacer marched into Rome, deposing the last emperor of the West. The once mighty empire had fallen, its rule over Germania a distant memory. The world had entered a new age, one of shifting power and rising kingdoms. The Germanic tribes stood at the dawn of a new era, one that would forge the foundation of medieval Germany. Chapter 3: The Rise of the Holy Empire. The year is 800 AD. A cold wind sweeps across the vast Frankish kingdom, carrying whispers of an empire soon to rise. In the sacred halls of St. Peter's Basilica in Rome, Charles, the great Frankish king, kneels before the aging Pope Leo III. The candlelight flickers upon the golden crown held above his head. Then, in a single moment, history is rewritten. The Pope lowers the crown onto Charles's brow and proclaims him Emperor of the Romans, a title long thought lost to the ashes of time. From that moment, the Holy Roman Empire is born, though its lands are yet undefined, its power yet untested. The Carolingian legacy. Charlemagne, as the world will remember him, is no ordinary king. He is a warrior, a statesman, a visionary. His empire stretches across modern-day Germany, France, and beyond, a fusion of Roman traditions and Germanic might. He establishes laws, revives education, and strengthens Christianity's hold upon his lands. But even great empires falter. Upon his death in 814 the empire shudders and the seeds of division are sown. By 843 the Treaty of Verdun carves the empire into 3: West Francia, modern France; Middle Francia, a fleeting entity; and East Francia, the land that will one day become Germany. From the remnants of Charlemagne's dream, a new power begins to stir in the east. The Saxon kings and Otto the Great. The 9th and 10th centuries are a time of chaos and ambition. Viking raids ravage the northern shores, and Magyar horsemen storm across the east. The Frankish kings are weak, but from the shadows of instability, a new dynasty emerges, the Saxons. Henry the Fowler, a cunning and pragmatic ruler, ascends to the throne of East Francia in 919. He forges alliances, fortifies cities, and repels invaders. But it is his son Otto I who will reshape history. In 955 on the plains of Lechfeld, Otto leads his outnumbered forces against the formidable Magyar cavalry. Thunderous hooves shake the earth as the Magyars charge, their arrows darkening the sky. But Otto's disciplined knights stand firm. The battle rages until, at last, the Magyars are crushed, never to threaten Germany again. The victory cements Otto's reputation, and in 962 he follows in Charlemagne's footsteps. In Rome he is crowned Holy Roman Emperor, binding Germany's fate to the papacy and setting the stage for centuries of struggle between emperors and popes. The investiture controversy, a clash of titans. The empire grows, but with power comes conflict. By the 11th century, a question of authority ignites a fiery struggle. Who should appoint bishops, the emperor or the pope? Emperor Henry IV insists on his right, but Pope Gregory VII challenges him. The confrontation spirals into the infamous walk to Canossa, 1077. Through the bitter snow, Henry IV trudges to the fortress of Canossa, dressed in a penitent's robe, seeking forgiveness from the Pope. For 3 days he kneels in the cold before the fortress gates. The scene is one of humility, but also of calculation. When Gregory finally grants absolution, Henry has won a temporary reprieve, but the battle between church and state is far from over. The rise of the Hohenstaufens and imperial ambition. As the 12th century dawns, a new dynasty seizes the imperial throne, the Hohenstaufens. Among them, Frederick I, known as Barbarossa for his fiery red beard, emerges as one of the greatest emperors of the medieval world. Determined to assert imperial authority over Italy, Barbarossa marches south with a gleaming army. He dreams of uniting Germany and Italy under one rule. But resistance brews in the cities of Lombardy, and Pope Alexander III stands against him. At Legnano, 1176, Barbarossa's cavalry meets the fierce Lombard League in battle. The clash is brutal, and for the first time, an emperor is defeated by mere city militias. Humbled but not broken, Barbarossa makes peace, though his ambitions remain. He joins the Third Crusade, 1189, eager to reclaim Jerusalem for Christendom, but fate intervenes. While crossing a river in Anatolia, the great emperor drowns, his body lost to the currents. His empire mourns, and legends arise that one day he will return, his red beard flowing, to restore Germany's might. The empire at its zenith, Frederick II. Barbarossa's grandson, Frederick II, is a man ahead of his time. Fluent in multiple languages, a patron of science and philosophy, he is called the Stupor Mundi, the wonder of the world. He rules not from Germany but from Sicily, where his court is a melting pot of European, Arabic and Greek knowledge. But his defiance of papal authority earns him excommunication not once, but twice. Despite this, he accomplishes what few crusaders could. He regains Jerusalem without bloodshed, negotiating its return through diplomacy. Yet, his empire, stretched across Germany, Italy, and the Mediterranean, is too vast to hold. Upon his death in 1250, the Holy Roman Empire fractures, ushering in a period of disarray known as the Great Interregnum. For decades, no single ruler can claim the imperial crown. The once mighty empire teeters on the edge of chaos. But from the ashes of uncertainty, a new dynasty will rise, the Habsburgs, who will shape Germany's fate for centuries to come. The Middle Ages have set the stage. From warring kings to defiant popes, from crusades to coronations, Germany has been forged in the fires of ambition and war. But the world is changing. The Renaissance looms, and with it the early modern era. What lies ahead for the empire? Chapter 4: The Age of Princes and Reform. The Holy Roman Empire stood as a colossus, a sprawling mosaic of princely domains, free cities, and knightly estates, bound together by a fragile imperial authority. Yet, beneath the gilded facade of imperial splendor, tension simmered. The empire was a battlefield, not of swords but of ideas, faith, and power struggles that would shape Germany's destiny. The fractured crown. The late Middle Ages saw emperors struggling to maintain authority over a patchwork of fiercely independent princes. While the Habsburgs tightened their grip on Austria, the mighty electors of Saxony, Brandenburg, and Bavaria wielded influence that rivaled the throne itself. Imperial authority, once wielded with an iron hand by the likes of Frederick Barbarossa, was now a delicate game of diplomacy and concessions. In 1356, Emperor Charles IV sought to bring order to this chaos through the Golden Bull. This decree formalized the electoral process, enshrining the power of 7 key electors to choose the emperor, ensuring that the title remained in German hands. But the document also cemented the independence of the German princes, making the empire more of a confederation than a unified state. The dawn of the Reformation. By the early 16th century, Germany stood on the brink of an upheaval that would shake Christendom to its core. The Catholic Church, once the unchallenged spiritual and political authority, had grown decadent. Rome's coffers swelled from the sale of indulgences, peddled as divine pardons for sins. It was a practice that enraged a monk in Wittenberg, Martin Luther. In 1517, Luther nailed his 95 Theses to the church door, a spark that set Europe ablaze. He challenged the Pope's authority, declared salvation came through faith alone, and denounced the corruption that had plagued the Church for centuries. The printing press, a revolutionary invention, carried his words like wildfire across the empire. Princes saw an opportunity in Luther's defiance. Some, like Frederick the Wise of Saxony, shielded him from Rome's wrath, not only out of conviction but also for political gain. The Protestant movement fractured the unity of the empire, birthing the Lutheran faith and igniting a series of religious conflicts that would last for generations. The Peasants' War and the smoldering empire. As reformist ideas spread, so too did unrest. The common people, long burdened by feudal oppression, found in Luther's words a call for change. In 1524, Germany erupted in the Peasants' War, a massive uprising against the nobility. Armed with scythes and raw fury, they sought to overthrow their lords and claim justice in the name of Christian equality. But Luther, horrified by the violence, denounced the rebellion. The princes, eager to maintain order, crushed the revolt with merciless force, slaughtering thousands. The dream of a free and equal Christian society died on blood-soaked fields, leaving the empire more divided than ever. Meanwhile, Emperor Charles V found himself locked in a struggle not only with rebellious princes but also with foreign enemies. The Ottoman Turks threatened Vienna, while France and the papacy sought to curb his power. In 1555, weary of war, he signed the Peace of Augsburg, a fragile truce that allowed German rulers to choose their own faith, Catholicism or Lutheranism. It was a temporary fix to a growing rift that would later explode into the most devastating conflict in German history. A nation divided. Germany, once bound by faith and empire, had become a land of divided loyalties. The seeds of religious and political strife had been sown, and the days of imperial unity seemed like a distant memory. The Reformation had given birth to new ideals, but it had also shattered the very foundations of the empire. As the 16th century waned, the empire teetered on the edge of an abyss. The next chapter in Germany's history would be written in blood and fire, the 30 Years' War, a cataclysm that would bring the Holy Roman Empire to its knees. Chapter 5. The 30 Years' War, a continent in flames. The year was 1618, and the air in the Holy Roman Empire was thick with tension. The uneasy balance of power between Catholic and Protestant states, forged through fragile alliances and brittle treaties, was about to shatter. What began as a local uprising in Bohemia would soon engulf the entire continent in 3 decades of relentless warfare, turning cities into graveyards and empires into ashes. The spark in Prague. On a fateful May morning in 1618 in the heart of Prague, a gathering of Protestant nobles stormed Hradčany Castle. Inside, they confronted the imperial governors of the Catholic Habsburg Emperor, Matthias. In a fiery exchange, accusations flew like daggers. Then, in a shocking act of defiance, 2 imperial officials were hurled from the castle windows. They tumbled into the depths below, an event known as the Defenestration of Prague. Though they survived, the message was clear: war had begun. From the cobbled streets of Prague, the rebellion spread like wildfire. Bohemia, fueled by Protestant fervor, refused to bow to the Catholic Habsburgs, electing their own king, Frederick V, known as the Winter King. But his reign was fleeting. At the Battle of White Mountain in 1620, Habsburg forces crushed the Protestant army, securing Catholic dominance in Bohemia and setting the stage for a broader conflict. Europe caught in the inferno. The war was no longer just a religious struggle. It became a battleground of politics, greed, and ambition. The Catholic League, led by the Habsburgs, sought to reclaim Protestant lands, while Protestant princes and their foreign allies fought to curb Habsburg power. Mercenary armies, ruthless and driven by plunder, roamed the lands, leaving nothing but destruction in their wake. Sweden, under the brilliant King Gustavus Adolphus, entered the war in 1630. His disciplined armies carved through Catholic forces, striking fear into the heart of the empire. But victory was costly. At the Battle of Lutzen in 1632, Gustavus Adolphus led a daring cavalry charge, only to fall on the battlefield, his body riddled with musket fire. Though Sweden continued the fight, the loss of their lion-hearted king was a heavy blow. France, a Catholic nation, paradoxically joined the Protestant cause under Cardinal Richelieu. The conflict was no longer about faith, it was about power. With France's intervention, the war dragged on, consuming Germany in a storm of blood and fire. Villages were razed, towns emptied by famine and disease. The once prosperous lands of the empire became a wasteland where only crows and wolves thrived. Peace at a price. By 1648, Europe was weary. The signing of the Peace of Westphalia ended the war, redrawing borders and reshaping the continent. The Holy Roman Empire, once a mighty dominion, lay fragmented, its princes granted greater autonomy. Sweden and France emerged as dominant powers, while Spain's influence waned. Germany, devastated and divided, faced a long and painful road to recovery. The 30 Years' War had claimed over 8 million lives. It had shown the horrors of unbridled ambition and religious extremism. Yet from the ruins a new order emerged. The idea of state sovereignty took root, laying the foundation for the modern nation-state. But for Germany the scars would last for generations. The land that had once been the battleground of kings and emperors would have to rebuild, brick by brick, dream by dream, forging a new destiny from the ashes of war. Chapter 6. The Rise of Prussia and the Dawn of a New Order. Scene 1. The Ashes of War. The land lay in ruins. The 30 Years' War had left the German heartland devastated, towns reduced to smoldering rubble, fields abandoned, and the people weary of bloodshed. The Peace of Westphalia in 1648 had redrawn the map of the Holy Roman Empire, but it had done little to unify the shattered territories. Among the many states that emerged from the chaos, one would soon rise above the rest: Brandenburg Prussia. Under the leadership of Frederick William, the Great Elector, Brandenburg Prussia embarked on an ambitious path. The war had left his realm vulnerable, a loose collection of territories separated by foreign lands. But Frederick William was no ordinary ruler. He saw opportunity where others saw only despair. Through deft diplomacy and sheer force of will, he laid the foundation of a powerful state. Scene 2. Forging a military state. The Great Elector knew that survival in a fractured Germany meant strength. He turned his eyes to the military. The once feeble Brandenburg army was transformed into a disciplined and modern force. With the help of French Huguenots, Dutch engineers and seasoned mercenaries, he crafted an army that could stand against Europe's greatest powers. His reforms extended beyond the battlefield. He centralized authority, weakened the nobility's grip on power, and encouraged economic growth. By welcoming persecuted Protestants from across Europe, he injected new life into his cities. His vision was clear: Brandenburg Prussia would not remain a backwater, it would become a force to be reckoned with. Scene 3. The Birth of the Prussian Kingdom. As the 18th century dawned, Frederick William's work bore fruit. His son, Frederick I, took the final step toward true sovereignty. In 1701, with the consent of the Holy Roman Emperor, he crowned himself king in Prussia. Though still nominally part of the empire, Prussia now had a king, a title that symbolized its growing ambitions. Under Frederick I and his successors, Prussia flourished. Roads and bridges connected its far-flung provinces. The bureaucracy swelled, creating a state machinery that functioned with ruthless efficiency. But it was under Frederick I's son, Frederick William I, that the soul of Prussia truly emerged. Scene 4. The Soldier King's Vision. Frederick William I ruled not as a king of luxury, but as a king of discipline. He saw extravagance as a weakness, parading around Berlin in a simple uniform rather than regal finery. He disdained the aristocracy's pomp and instead forged the army into the backbone of Prussian identity. His army, small but fiercely trained, became the envy of Europe. Prussia's military prowess, however, would not remain merely a tool of defense. It would soon become the instrument of conquest and change. And at the heart of this transformation was a young prince, a reluctant warrior who would one day be called Frederick the Great. Scene 5. The Dawn of a New Order. As the sun rose over Potsdam in the early 18th century, Frederick William I watched his soldiers drill, their muskets gleaming in the morning light. His son, the young Frederick, stood nearby, dreaming not of war but of philosophy, music, and poetry. Yet destiny had other plans for him. In the years to come, the world would come to know the name of Frederick the Great. He would take his father's disciplined state and forge it into a European power. He would challenge emperors and kings, defy expectations and rewrite history. Prussia's rise was no accident, it was a carefully orchestrated transformation. The scars of the 30 Years' War had hardened its resolve, and now, under the House of Hohenzollern, a new order was emerging. The German states remained divided, but a storm was brewing and Prussia was at its heart. The age of kings and empires was shifting. A new force was rising. And Germany's fate would never be the same again. Chapter 7: The Napoleonic Wars and the Seeds of Unification. The dawn of the 19th century brought a storm unlike any Germany had ever seen. As the French Revolution sent shockwaves across Europe, a new figure emerged from its chaos: Napoleon Bonaparte. His rise to power signaled a seismic shift in the political landscape, and soon the fragmented German states found themselves caught in the whirlwind of his ambition. The fall of the Holy Roman Empire. For centuries, the Holy Roman Empire had existed as a loose confederation of states, a ghost of Charlemagne's once mighty dominion. But under the relentless march of Napoleon's armies, its frailty was exposed. In 1805, the French emperor shattered the combined forces of Austria and Russia at the Battle of Austerlitz, a crushing blow that reshaped the balance of power in Central Europe. The following year, Napoleon orchestrated the formation of the Confederation of the Rhine, a collection of German states under French protection. In response, Emperor Francis II made a fateful decision. He formally dissolved the Holy Roman Empire in 1806, ending a legacy that had endured for over 1,000 years. The old order was gone, and in its place, Napoleon's vision of a new Europe took shape. Prussia's humiliation and awakening. Prussia, once the rising star of German affairs, found itself humbled by Napoleon's might. At the twin disasters of Jena and Auerstedt in 1806, the Prussian army was obliterated and Berlin fell to the French. The humiliation was profound. Prussia was forced into submission, and its king, Frederick William III, fled to the eastern edges of his kingdom. Yet from this defeat, a new resolve was born. Reformers such as Karl von Stein and Gerhard von Scharnhorst set about transforming Prussia from within, overhauling its military, economy, and administration. A new sense of German nationalism was brewing, and as Napoleon's wars dragged on, the seeds of resistance took root. The Wars of Liberation. By 1812, Napoleon had reached the height of his power, but his campaign against Russia proved to be his undoing. As the remnants of his once great army limped back from the frozen expanse, the German states saw their opportunity. In 1813, Prussia, Austria, and Russia formed the Sixth Coalition and launched their bid to free Germany from French dominance. The decisive moment came at the Battle of Leipzig, also known as the Battle of Nations, the largest battle in European history before World War I. Over 500,000 soldiers clashed in a brutal contest that lasted 4 days. In the end, Napoleon was defeated, forced to retreat, and the Confederation of the Rhine crumbled. The Congress of Vienna and a new German order. With Napoleon exiled to Elba, the victorious Allies gathered in Vienna in 1815 to reshape Europe. The result was the German Confederation, a loose association of 39 German states under Austrian leadership. Though it lacked true unity, it was a step toward a greater German identity. Prussia emerged from the war stronger than ever, its military reforms proving their worth on the battlefield. The rivalry between Prussia and Austria for dominance in German affairs would define the decades to come. Meanwhile, the dream of German unification had begun to take hold in the hearts of the people. As the 19th century unfolded, the embers of nationalism smoldered, waiting for the right moment to ignite. A new Germany was on the horizon, but the road to unification would be long and fraught with conflict. Chapter 8: The Unification of Germany, a Nation Forged in Fire. The world watches as the German lands stir with the echoes of destiny. The 19th century heralds the rise of a singular force, a force that will forge a fragmented people into a unified titan. The fires of war and the will of iron will shape the fate of a nation. This is the age of unification. This is the era of Prussia's dominance. The Seeds of Unity. Europe, 1815. The Napoleonic Wars have left the German Confederation in a precarious state, a loose collection of 39 states under the distant gaze of the Austrian Empire. Nationalist embers smolder beneath the surface, waiting for the right spark. While Austria holds traditional sway over German affairs, another power rises in the north, Prussia, led by its ambitious kings and a growing military machine. The two titans are destined for a collision that will determine the soul of Germany. Within this fractured land, Otto von Bismarck, a man of sharp intellect and unyielding resolve, emerges. A master of realpolitik, he sees diplomacy not as an art of compromise, but as a battlefield where words are weapons. He does not ask for unity, he will carve it with blood and iron. The Wars of Unification. 1864, the Danish War. The first move on the chessboard. Prussia and Austria, temporary allies, strike against Denmark over the disputed duchies of Schleswig and Holstein. A swift victory sends a clear message. The German lands will no longer be dictated by foreign rulers. 1866, the Austro-Prussian War. Bismarck, ever the strategist, turns on Austria. In 7 weeks, the disciplined Prussian army delivers a crushing blow at the Battle of Königgrätz. Austria is expelled from German affairs, and the North German Confederation is born. A new order is forming, but it is not yet complete. 1870, the Franco-Prussian War. The final act. Bismarck, ever the manipulator, engineers a conflict with France, using a diplomatic sleight, the infamous EMS dispatch, to provoke Emperor Napoleon III into war. The German states, sensing an existential threat, unite behind Prussia. At the Battle of Sedan, the French are decisively defeated, Napoleon III is captured and Paris falls into siege. The war ends with a resounding German victory. The birth of an empire. January 18, 1871. The Hall of Mirrors, Versailles. The air is thick with triumph. German princes, generals, and noblemen stand in solemn anticipation. Then, at last, the moment arrives. King Wilhelm I of Prussia is proclaimed Emperor of Germany. The empire is born not in the grand halls of Berlin, but in the heart of a conquered France, a testament to Prussia's indomitable might. The German Empire is now a reality, a colossus in the heart of Europe. Yet, as the banners are raised and the people celebrate, shadows loom on the horizon. The seeds of future conflict are already sown. The world has changed, but the struggle for power never ends. Germany is united. But at what cost? Germany's story is one of resilience, triumph, and reinvention. Through the ruins of war, the dawn of unity, and the struggle for identity, it has endured. The echoes of the past still whisper in its cathedrals and castles, in the melodies of Beethoven and the words of Goethe, in the dreams of those who dare to shape the future. History is never truly finished. It is a living thing carried by those who remember. And as Germany stands today, forged by its past yet ever reaching forward, one truth remains. The soul of a nation is not bound by borders, but by the people who call it home.